The US Navy has hijacked a second ship in just 3 days, even as President Trump extends the truce and tries to hold the situation from spiraling further out of control. The US has hijacked another civilian ship linked to Iran, and this time the vessel was seized far away from the Strait of Hormuz, adding a fresh twist to the confrontation. After the Oman Gulf incident, the latest ship attack tied to the US has now surfaced in the Bay of Bengal, widening the geographic scope of the tension at sea. Meanwhile, US President Trump has extended the ceasefire after Iran threatened to strike 3 major oil hotspots, raising the stakes in a region already on edge. There are growing concerns that Trump's pressure tactics could backfire badly if Iran moves to shut down global oil trade and disrupt one of the world's most critical energy routes. Amid a stalemate over peace talks, the US attacked another Iran-linked vessel, deepening tensions even as diplomatic efforts remain stuck. Just days after seizing an Iran-flagged cargo ship, the US captured another tanker, signaling a continued escalation at sea. The vessel was facing sanctions for allegedly smuggling Iranian crude oil through Asia, according to the US government. The US revealed the operation on April 21st, the very same day that Trump extended the truce, adding to the timing controversy. The tanker, identified as MT Tifani, was captured in the Bay of Bengal, far from the Strait of Hormuz and the region's usual flashpoints. MT Tifani was carrying Iranian oil, according to a US defense official cited by the Associated Press. The US called MT Tifani a stateless vessel, even though it was reportedly flagged in Botswana, as per the Associated Press. On April 19, US forces had fired at and seized another Iranian-flagged ship in the Oman Gulf, further widening the confrontation. The US military is expected to decide within the next 4 days what to do with the vessel, according to a report. The options reportedly include turning the vessel over to another country or towing it back to the United States. US President Donald Trump announced on April 21 that the current ceasefire with Iran would be extended, altering the timeline for the temporary pause in hostilities. In a post on his Truth social platform, Trump said that attacks will be held off until Iran puts forward a formal proposal, tying the extension to the prospect of a new diplomatic offer. The truce, which had been set to expire on April 22, was extended at the request of Pakistani mediators, as Trump stated, reflecting their continued role as a back-channel broker. Hours earlier, Trump had publicly expressed that he was not in favor of prolonging the ceasefire, according to Al Jazeera coverage of his on-the-record remarks, underscoring the last-minute nature of the reversal. On X, Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif also expressed gratitude to Trump for extending the ceasefire, welcoming the decision as a chance to preserve the diplomatic window. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I have therefore directed our military to continue the blockade and, in all other respects, remain ready and able, and will therefore extend the ceasefire until such time as their proposal is submitted, and discussions are concluded, one way or the other." Iranian leadership did not immediately respond to Trump's announcement of the ceasefire extension, leaving the level of Tehran's engagement unclear in the first hours after the move. However, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps issued a warning that it would respond immediately with force if the United States launches any new attacks, maintaining a posture of high alert. Ibrahim Zolfagari said, and I quote, "Our capable and powerful forces have been in a state of 100% readiness and with their fingers on the trigger for a long time, so that in the event of any aggression or action against Islamic Iran, they will immediately launch a powerful attack on predetermined targets, and teach the aggressive America and the child-killing Israeli regime another lesson, more severe than before." Meanwhile, the US Treasury Secretary has stated that the United States will continue its maximum pressure campaign targeting Iran's financial and energy sectors. The campaign is designed to systematically degrade Iran's ability to generate revenue, move funds through international channels, and repatriate money into its domestic economy. Trump's about-face on the ceasefire came after Iranian officials strongly condemned the US naval blockade on Tehran's ports, which they have described as a major escalation. Before Trump's announcement, Iran's foreign minister had called the blockade an act of war, signaling that Tehran does not view it as a legal or limited enforcement measure. With the maritime siege on Iranian ports persisting, analysts say it remains unclear whether the ceasefire extension will be enough to bring Iran back to the negotiating table or if it will instead harden Tehran's resistance. Iran has reportedly listed the targets it would hit if US and Israeli strikes on its territory restart, signaling that Tehran is again pointing to the region's critical energy arteries as potential pressure points. Iran's Tasnim News released what it described as an IRGC-linked target list on April 21st, as fresh warnings surfaced over how Tehran could respond if the war restarts. The IRGC would reportedly target the Yanbu pipeline system in Saudi Arabia, which is widely seen as a major alternative route for oil exports that bypasses the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's military would also reportedly target the UAE's Fujairah oil facilities and the Bab al-Mandeb Strait, both of which are central to efforts to reroute energy flows away from Hormuz. If Iran were to hit those three pressure points, the impact on global crude oil supply could be severe because Yanbu, Fujairah, and Bab al-Mandeb all serve as key alternatives or choke points for international energy shipments. Iran also said it is preparing a decisive and immediate response to any renewed enemy threat, underscoring that its military posture remains on high alert despite the diplomatic track. Major General Abdullahi issued that warning as suspense continued to build over the next round of talks in Pakistan, and over whether Tehran would fully commit to attending. Major General Ali Abdullahi said, and I quote, "Today, the heroic nation of Iran is proud of the authority, preparedness, and all-round strategic capabilities of the IRGC and other forces of the defenders of the homeland, which have driven the Zionist enemy and terrorist America to desperation and exhaustion with deadly and destructive missile and drone strikes and forced them to call for a desperate ceasefire. The people of Iran have not abandoned their support for the armed forces with their enthusiastic and widespread presence in the squares and streets. The brave armed forces of Iran, together with the noble and surprising government and nation of Iran, are united in full compliance with the measures of the Supreme Commander-in-Chief, preparing decisive and immediate responses to the threats and actions of the enemy. The armed forces, with a superior hand, did not allow the false and delusional President of America to abuse and make false narratives about the situation in the field and the conditions of silence in the military battle, especially in the management and control of the Strait of Hormuz, and they will respond appropriately to any violation of the covenant." Iran has accused the United States of violating the ceasefire after attacking its cargo vessel in the Gulf of Oman. On April 19th, U.S. forces reportedly fired on the ship, disabling its engine before boarding and seizing it. President Donald Trump later confirmed the seizure, saying the vessel was under U.S. sanctions. In response, Iranian media said drone attacks were launched targeting U.S. warships operating nearby. Iranian officials described the strikes as direct retaliation for what they called a U.S. act of aggression. Iran strongly condemned the incident and warned that further retaliation against the U.S. would follow. Ibrahim Zolfagari said, and I quote, "The aggressor United States violated the ceasefire and committed maritime piracy by firing at an Iranian merchant ship in the waters of the Sea of Oman and landing a number of its terrorist marines on the deck of the vessel, disabling its navigation system. We warn that the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran will soon respond to this armed piracy and retaliation by the U.S. Army," unquote. The operation comes at a time of fragile ceasefire and growing uncertainty over ongoing diplomatic efforts. The U.S. military also released footage showing Navy fire hitting the cargo ship while it was out at sea. According to reports, a U.S. missile destroyer intercepted the ship as it allegedly attempted to head toward Iran. The Iran-flagged vessel was said to be traveling toward Bandar Abbas port when it was stopped, according to the U.S. military. U.S. officials say the ship ignored communications for more than 6 hours, which led forces to take action. The destroyer then reportedly ordered the crew to evacuate the engine room before opening fire to disable the vessel. Several shells from the warship's 5-inch Mk-45 gun struck the engine area, leaving the ship immobilized in the water. U.S. troops later boarded the Iranian vessel and took control without meeting any further resistance. The ship is now in U.S. custody following the operation, according to U.S. Central Command. U.S. officials say the vessel was taken into custody after it allegedly tried to break a U.S. blockade on Iranian ports. Iran has strongly condemned the operation as armed piracy and theft, and has vowed retaliation over what it calls a violation of the truce. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Today, an Iranian-flagged cargo ship named Tuska, nearly 900 feet long and weighing almost as much as an aircraft carrier, tried to get past our naval blockade, and it did not go well for them." The U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer USS Spruance intercepted the Tuska in the Gulf of Oman, and gave it a fair warning to stop. The Iranian crew refused to listen, so our Navy ship stopped them right in their tracks by blowing a hole in the engineer room. Right now, US Marines have custody of the vessel. The Tuska is under US Treasury sanctions because of its prior history of illegal activity. We have full custody of the ship, and are seeing what's on board.